Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the studio this evening. So this evening I am painting a mermaid for you. I've got her pre-drawn on a sheet of paper here, and I'm going to jump right into painting this. Before I get into what I'm doing, I will tell you I have sped this up ever so slightly, like 3 times faster than normal, because the video is about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes of footage, and I wanted to get this into a reasonable amount of time, so I did have to speed that up a bit. But let me tell you about the supplies that I'm using here. The paper that I'm using is Arches watercolor paper. It's 140 pound cold pressed paper. Wonderful, wonderful watercolor paper. The paints that I am using are, of course, my studio palette full of M.Graham paints. I love my M.Graham paints. And the brushes that I'm using this evening are kind of a menagerie of different brushes. Mostly, though, I'll be using my Dana Squirrel Quill Mop brushes, and I'll be using some silver black velvet brushes in this painting. And as you can see, I'm just getting going with what I'm doing. I've got a little bit of red paint already mixed on my palette. And I just want to get a flesh tone into that. So what I've done is I've used a little bit of that red with a little bit of gamboge to make a bit of a flesh tone for myself. And now I'm mixing in a little bit of phthalo green to make this mermaid's body, the lower half of her body, the fin part of her body here. And you'll see me doing that. Maybe I mix into it a little bit of olive green to darken it just a bit, or just a bit of Hansa yellow where I really need to lighten that up. And you can see I'm painting around some of the seaweed that she is swimming in here. So I want everybody to be cognizant of that, and I'm just going right down her tail. There we go. Keep going right down there, Michael. Painting around the seaweed. I do want to draw your attention to the small cup that is in the lower left-hand corner of this painting. I recently did this on Twitch, and that was a tip jar, tip cup kind of a thing that was there for the painting. I have subsequently taken that off on videos that I'm trying to do to paint on Twitch and maybe rebroadcast and rebrand here on YouTube. So I apologize for you having to see it here, but you won't see it, I don't believe, in too many other videos. I've got it shot on a couple, but not too many. So hopefully that is not too distracting for anybody there. And while I've got this flesh tone here, I'm going to try to differentiate parts of our mermaid's body. So her arm, which is behind her main body there, is a little bit in shadow. I'm just going to darken that up a little bit. And on her hands, where there might be a shadow, just put in a little bit of dark. Something to start to give some semblance of shape to her body. You can clearly see right there. It definitely looks like now that right arm of hers is back behind the rest of her body. And if we're gonna give her some form and shape on one arm, let's do it on the other arm. And so that's just what I'm doing right here, and I'm just kind of softening the edge as it comes up her arm, around her arm. There's no hard edges on a round surface, so I just want to make sure that where it goes around her arm, it just is really a nice soft edge. We don't need a hard edge to denote anything. And the same thing here on a nice flat stomach. There's going to be a hard edge here. There's going to be a soft edge here to denote that it's nice and rounded and not like a 2x4 or anything like that. Right? We don't want to paint it like that, certainly. Okay, just continuing with that. I will let you in on a little fact. It's been so long since I've made a video like this. It seems really odd for me to be doing a voiceover for a video that I've done such a long time ago. It's a really strange feeling to sit here and watch myself repaint something and then talk about what it is that I'm painting. I think I'm going to be able to do a good job with it. I'm kind of infatuated with watching to see what I am doing, if I'm being honest. And so I hope I don't get lost in watching and am able to continue to talk and tell you what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. But here, just as I gave her body, the top half of her body, the human half of her body, a little bit of roundness, I want to do the same thing for the bottom half of her body, the fish half of her body. And so I'm darkening up right around the edges a little bit, just a little bit. There we go, there we go. And I just want to, you make it look like, yeah, again, it's like she's not square or she's not flat, that she's got these nice curves on her. And she's a well-rounded mermaid, if that makes sense. That's a terrible thing to say. I think that's how you say it, though, in essence. So I'm dropping a little bit of extra color on here. And the color that I'm using is phthalo green with a little bit of olive green to darken it down. Again, these are M.Graham paint colors. Most of my painting in the studio here is done with my M.Graham paints. I truly love M.Graham paints. The colors are vibrant. There's a lot of pigment in the paints. In fact, maybe they might be a little too pigmented. I don't know. They're fantastic paints. I really like these paints. I can't say that enough. And it looks as though I have a silver black velvet brush in my hand. It's a round brush. Probably, my guess would be number 8. I'm not sure what I'm looking at back there, but so now I'm going to put her in a little bit of context, or begin to put her in a little bit of context. There are a few rocks here in the foreground, just in front of her. So I've got a little bit of gray, a little bit of brown gray. I'm just going to drop some color in here, and we'll develop these rocks a little bit as we go on. There we are, and then of course we've got some nice seaweed that grows up from these rocks, and we'll get that on there too. But we just want to start with a little bit of this gray color. Well, I'm going to clean my palette just a little bit in preparation of doing some other colors for her. I've grabbed it looks like a number 4 silver black velvet brush, trying to get the exact color that I want for these weeds, or this seaweed that's growing up. Phthalo green and a bit of Hansa yellow on my palette, a cold yellow anyways. If you don't have Hansa yellow on your palette, any cold yellow would start to do for these. And I want this yellow, I want the green to be just a bit different than the green on her. A more warm, inviting green for these plants. They're in some nice warm water. I mean, she wouldn't be swimming around in cold water, would she? I don't think so. I think mermaids live mostly in warm water. So these plants are warm water plants. And look at it, look fantastic there. And then the one right in front of her, and you can clearly see the differences in the green colors there. That looks great. The differences there. And with that little shadowing on her body now, that that seaweed looks like it's way in front of her already, and we haven't done a whole lot yet. We've just started this painting, and already we've got some good depth going on here. And here's another one. Let's paint it roughly the same color. I do keep going back to my palette, and I alter the colors a little bit here and a little bit there, and that's okay. That's just to keep it a little bit interesting. When you look at it visually, you don't want everything to be exactly the same color. You want it to just have a little bit of variation in there. So that's why I just alter those colors a little bit every time when I go back into my palette. But you can see it's starting to come to life, totally starting to come to life. There's another one, a nice bright color in front of her. I'm not sure why I painted it quite so dark there. I would have liked to painted it a little brighter. I see I'm going to put in maybe a little bit of lighter yellow there. Anyways, okay. Good, good, good. That's growing in front of her tail. You can see it clearly there. All right, I'm going to try, by the time this is all done, to give a little extra life to these bits of seaweed. We'll give a little shadow to them and a little life to them. But I'm not going to do too much. The focus of this painting is, of course, our mermaid. And so I want her to be the focus, which means a little less detail on the seaweed and a little more focus on her. But we do need to have some of the seaweed in here to add some visual interest, so we're gonna forge ahead with that. You do see me stopping from time to time, just like I did there. Like I said, I did do this live. I painted this live on Twitch, and there were a few questions being asked while I was painting it, so I did take a moment or two to answer some questions. And that's why you see me stop a little bit. Okay, now, back to these rocks, apparently. Let's get into these. There are a few cracks and crevices, a few dark areas in these rocks. Let's just paint those on and give this some interest. There we go, a little dark and a little light. There must be a light source coming from somewhere that we need to pay attention to. And it looks like we've got it handled nicely. It appears as though I'm using a bit of blue in here, and maybe, where did I go to? Did I grab a little bit of raw umber to make this color? But I know there's a lot of blue in here. And there we go. You can see there's some rocks there. They've got some definite shape to them now. Okay, I'm sorry, there was a little lull there, a few seconds of silence maybe. My throat was getting quite dry. I had to go and get myself something to drink, so I had to pause the audio for just a second. Okay, but I'm back, and I'm trying to give some depth and detail and definition to these underwater plants, this seaweed, a little ultramarine blue, a little bit of Hansa yellow. We're going to add maybe just a little bit of shadow on these to give them just a bit of life. I don't want to go crazy with details on the seaweed here. I'd rather spend my time painting the mermaid. But we do need to give a little bit of detail on these to make them, to make it more realistic that they are here. A little bit more believable, to make it more believable as I'm painting a mermaid. That's funny. Unbelievable mermaid. Okay. Anyways, so a little darker back there behind her. I can get away with that a little bit. I need to keep it a little bit lighter in the front of her. And as I'm watching this, I'm saying to myself, man, my lighting is not optimal. I have recently rearranged my studio and moved my lighting around. Actually, I moved my whole desk around. So my lighting should be getting better in future videos, but in this one it looks like maybe it could use a little bit of help. I put my hands down and there is quite a large shadow everywhere I put my hand down. But you can see I'm just giving some shadow, some definition to some of the seaweed here. Just enough so that when you see it, you go, yes, it totally looks like a plant gently swaying back and forth in an ocean current. Or at least that's what I'm hoping you're saying. But I also hope you're saying, or what I hope you're not saying, is that it's taking away from our mermaid a little too much, because I definitely don't want to do that. All right, and one last, I guess maybe we have two fronds, are they fronds, leaves? What are these of seaweed that we need to go through here yet? But a little bit, I painted that on and then I looked at it and I went, that might be a little too dark. It blends in a little too much with her fish half, with the mermaid fish half, if that's how you say that, with her tail. Let's just say it with her tail. So I took a little bit of that color off of there to try to make it visual, a little bit more visual. You can see it a little bit better. And on this one, you can see definitely, it looks like there's some curling around of this big branch of seaweed there. And we're just going to forge right on ahead with that. I really love the way this painting turned out. So if you're hanging in there right now, we're going to get through this pretty quickly. We're well over halfway through this video, and a few more details on a couple of this branches of seaweed, and we're going to be done with it. We're going to be moving back to our mermaid. I think the mermaid already looks great. You can see she's already got on her human half. There's already a lot of depth. You can definitely see that she's in depth. She's got some depth to her. She's not flat at all. And so we're just gonna do a little bit more. I don't know why I'm trying to give so much detail on this leaf in front. Thought it looked fine just a moment ago. I should have just passed it up and been done with it. But I don't want it. I keep painting and I don't want it to get too dark. That's why you see me continually dabbing off a little bit of paint to keep it light and to keep the colors different from her. And come on, Michael, let's just be done. Let's just be done with the weeds. All right, okay. There we go. I think we're almost, a little, just a touch of a shadow here, touch of a shadow there, and we can get back to her. That should be about it. I'm going into some blue. And we've got a couple of things to finish on her. We've got the fin on the end of her tail, which I'm doing now. Looks like a little cobalt blue, a little ultramarine, and a little bit of phthalo green to make a beautiful tail color here, or a fin color. There it goes. I want it to still be a bit green, but definitely have some shades of some hints of blue in there. I guess I should say I want it to be blue with some hints of green, I guess is the better way to say that. There we go. Oh, look, it's looking fantastic. The choice of color, I love this color. A little phthalo green, a little cobalt blue, a little ultramarine thrown in there. I think it's a wonderful, wonderful color. For the end tail fin, what has happened? We've gone out of focus. Thank you, camera. Thank you for working with me. Back in focus now. Let's get her all centered in there. I think I'm going to start working on some hair here really quickly. I know I need to do that. Let me just clean off another space on my palette. Got a little bit messy, Take care of it very quickly. All right, mixing up some black. I can only mean the hair. The black that I'm using is Winsor & Newton Ivory Black. It is one of the only, I think it might be the only non-M.Graham color that I have on my palettes. And it just so happened that I had already had that Winsor & Newton Ivory Black. I bought it at a garage sale, believe it or not, and didn't want to not use it. I needed a black for a painting. Decided to put it on there. I loved it, and I have since purchased some M.Graham Black, which will be making its way onto my palette very shortly. But in the time being, I do have the Winsor & Newton Black on my palette, which will stay there until it's gone. Alright, I know she's got a few curls in this hair, even though she's underwater. So I want to give her these curls. And I always have trouble with hair. I never know exactly how to paint hair. Do I put on a lot of color and then pull out the curls from that color? Do I paint the curls on? Do I not paint the curls on? Do I do it in one layer? Do I do it in multiple layers? I never have a good plan for how to paint hair. So in this case, I've drawn it on exactly how I want to paint it. And I'm just following that. I want to get a good level, even color of paint on there. Not overly dark, but certainly not light. And my hope is that I'll be able to go back with a second layer of paint and put in some darker, some big dark areas on here, and have only two levels of her hair, if that makes sense. This base color, and then a darker color where everything is in much more of a shadow. And so you're seeing me paint on a couple of these squiggles or curls or whatever you want to call these on her hair. And that's going to be it for those. I'm not going to be painting anything else on the edge of her hair. What you see there basically is what you're going to get. And then we're going to go back in, like I said, and put in some darker darks to add some definition to her hair here and there. But her tail fin is dry now, and I think we can come back in and do some work on it. And what I want to do is leave, kind of like, I don't know, like a rib or a light spot around the edge and darker in the center. I think you'll be able to see that there. There, you can see it. And the same thing on the half that's closest to us, just like a regular fish fin. It's got kind of a rib in it, something to hold it kind of stiff. That's what I want to see in her tail. If I can do that, if I can pull that off. And again, I apologize for the darkness. When I put my hands down to paint, it get a little dark. It got a little dark for me in there. Would like to see that a bit lighter, but like I said, I have restructured my painting surface, and I think it gets better. It's going to be better in future videos. There we go. Let me hold that up so you can see it. That looks so much better to me. All right, we don't have too much more to go. We've got her hair to finish up, which we're going up and doing a little bit now, and maybe a little bit more on her tail. But here and there, a few darks, something to accentuate that first layer of paint on her hair. Not too much. Not too much at all. All I want is a dark that's dark enough to accentuate the fact that there's a little bit of a lighter area in her hair without actually having to paint a white to make it light. So all these curls have two sides to them, a dark side, the inside of the curl that's away from the light, and a lighter side, which was the first layer of paint. And those areas that I think are a little bit lighter, of course, not getting a second layer, and with any luck, you'll be able to see how this turns out. Well, you'll definitely be able to see how it turns out at the end of this video. I'm hoping that you'll be able to see it here. When I move my hands, there's a good view of it. You can see just a little bit of, gives it a little bit of movement, gives her hair a little bit of movement. I'm painting along the lines that I think her hair would be moving in. And just doing a bit here and doing a bit there. Not that much at all. Just a little bit more and we will be done with her hair. Just trying to pick out a couple places and trying not to do too much. There, you can see it. Right? It just goes with the flow of her hair. All right. So now what do we have left to do? We've got a little bit on her tail to do. Right, I want to paint in a couple of scales here and there, not too dark, just to give a little bit of indication of a few scales here and there, a scale here, a scale there. I don't want to overburden the viewer with seeing scales. There they are, very understated. Just a couple here, just a couple there. You'll notice these when you look at this, the finished painting. They'll be there for you to see, but they're scales. They shouldn't take over the painting, and here they definitely do not. Just gonna put a few more here and a few more there. Maybe those are a little bigger up there. Maybe not. Right, I do want you to be able to see a couple of them, so some in the dark, some in the light areas that we've painted, but not too many that it takes over everything. And now that we've got this just about done, we've got to move on to really the final little thing that we have to work on her, which is her face. She can't be faceless. I hope she's not going to be faceless. We do need to have There you can see just a couple of scales through there. That's all we want. Faces are hard. Faces are very hard. Faces are hard when you have a large painting. They're even harder when you have a very small painting. Oh, I guess I'm going to enhance some of the shadow on her just a little bit more. All right, all right. That arm is pretty far behind her, right? A little bit in that armpit, maybe not the most elegant of things to paint, but still there. In fact, that little bit actually really helps. There we go. A little bit, she is topless, a little bit there. Good thing that hair is covering everything up. And this color is still it's still a maroon perylene. It's got some gamboge in it. A little burnt umber in there too to brown that up a little bit, right? And keep that maybe in the shadow area a little bit. Pull that up there. Her whole stomach right there is in a bit of shadow. And there, I guess her cleavage is casting a little shadow right there. Just keep that in there. And you see I've got a little bit of a lighter line on the edge of her chest to denote a difference between her arm and her chest. That really helps to have that arm stand out a little bit as being behind her, under her chin. All right, I've been putting it off. Faces are hard enough on a big picture. On a little picture, you've got to be very delicate, very, very delicate, or it gets to be too much way too quickly. Let me clean off an area and get ready for this. A little bit of Pyrrole red. Maybe a little quinacridone rose in there. Just very slightly, very slight. I'm trying to use super light colors. That's a maroon perylene, a little yellow ochre. What I'm trying to do is get a little bit of her nose in there. Forcing that half of her face into a bit of a shadow so you can see her nose is really what we're doing. There, you can see it. Here we go. A little bit of neutral tint, some eyebrows. Again, very light, very light. Difficult for me to do. Oh, there we go. Difficult for me. I like bolder, brighter, gaudier colors. Very difficult. A little bit more, a little bit. Come on, she's got some eyes in there somewhere. Blue eyes, of course. Just drop those in a little bit here. Perfect. I don't want any more than that. Let me try and get that other one. I have to wait just a moment for that water to dry before I can drop that right eye in. In fact, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to blast it with a hair dryer. There's her eye, and there it is. And it's just enough. It's just enough to give her a face. And with that, I'm going to sign it and call this one good. This is the first mermaid I have painted in about 4 years, 5 years. I think this one turned out great. I hope you guys liked it. Like and subscribe. Like this video, subscribe to my channel, and we'll see you next time. Thank you all so much for joining me here. Bye-bye.